Now, do you remember this? How could you possibly forget? Of course you remember the England women's team ending decades of heartache for football fans by bringing it home last summer.
Yeah, now a parliamentary committee is looking at how we can build on their success to help break down the inequality and sexism that still exists within the sport.
Well, Shaista Aziz, who's one of the Three Hijabis, gave evidence today at the committee. Now, their campaign group has been working to fight sexism and racism in football, something that they say is intertwined. And as you can see, all three of them join us now, straight off the back of giving evidence. So, Shaista, what did he say exactly?
Hi, good evening. Nice to be here with you guys. So it's really important that today Parliament heard evidence, not only from us, but also from the FA and the Premier League and the Professional Footballers Association as well. We know that misogyny, sadly, is rife in society, as is racism. And what we've seen in the last Premier League season was a spike in violence in football grounds, shocking scenes taking place, right? And as you've said, this comes after this magnificent Lioness victory as well. And, you know, I think it's really important that the evidence was given, that it was listened to, and we hope that on the back of it, that football's governing bodies are held to account and that there is more action on these issues.
Really interested to hear a little bit about your own experiences, because you've all had your own journeys as football fans, haven't you? And I think you've all experienced sexism and racism at football grounds. Huda, perhaps I could turn to you. What have your experiences been in grounds?
Well, I live in Wembley, and up until Shaista, I had never set foot in the grounds at Wembley, the stadium, and we consciously made sure that we avoided football event days because of the scare, the worry about being abused or harassed.
It put you off?
By fans, absolutely. And you know, my boys enjoy football. My youngest particularly loves being in football. They go to also play sports in the school that Raheem Sterling went to, and so but the idea of stepping into the grounds is never an option. It never came to our minds because we're very aware of how unsafe it is for us as women, but also as people of colour.
I mean, when the Lionesses took home the Euros trophy, it did feel like a significant moment for women's football. Do you think Do you think we're still doing enough? Do you think maybe the moment has passed and people aren't talking about women's football the way they were last summer?
No, I think actually a lot has changed due to the Lionesses' win. And I think it was, you know, really momentous, and I think it's something that we should all be celebrating. I think the worry is there's a separation between the men's game and the women's game. And I know Shaista attended kind of the opening game and the final of the Lionesses' victorious win, and, you know, very different atmosphere. You could feel it even, you know, I live in Manchester, and in, you know, a number of games were held there. Very different experience outside somebody, you know, who's just doing their daily business, where when it's a men's game, the environment is very different. And I think we have to, you know, I think it's important not to associate the two games together. But I do think there is changes happening. I do worry that, you know, it's maybe not happening as quickly as it should do. You know, like Shaista and Huda, you know, I've grown up with football in my life, throughout my life. You know, my mum's a big Liverpool fan, absolutely crazy football fan. You know, my great nan was a Sunderland fan. You know, my granddad ran the local football team. You know, we were constantly being taken into pitches where, you know, we had to pitch the goal and so forth. And, you know, that's what we were brought up with. But at the same time, it's always been a space where we didn't necessarily feel we were welcomed. And I hope that the women's game learn a little bit quicker than the men's game has how to be much more inclusive and make sure that particularly women of colour feel like actually the game is for them as well.
Shaista, you've got one very practical idea, haven't you, that you've been talking about and we're talking about today, the idea of trialling banning alcohol.
Yeah, so we know that the World Cup in Qatar obviously was very controversial, but one thing that definitely worked alongside the brilliant football on the pitch is that they introduced an alcohol ban inside the stadiums. Now, unofficially, there are plenty of clubs that do that already, but what we're calling on is for the Premier League and the FA to work together to do a pilot in the Premier League season. And the reason we're calling for this is because we'd like to see more data work and figure out if there is no alcohol present in a ground, is that going to change the culture inside the stadium? Is it going to encourage a wider diversity of people who want to go? And is it you know, how does that impact sport? Because what we do know is, very sadly, alcohol is, you know, used as an excuse to fuel violence.
It's a really interesting one. Let's see if that's taken on board. Thank you, all three of you, for coming in to talk to us and tell us a bit about your feelings about this sport that you all love so much. Thank you.
Good luck, ladies. Lovely meeting you. Thank you.